Mercia.
Made for Coventry and Warwickshire.
We have a legend on the show with us this morning. Please welcome Mr. Murray Walker. Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Morning.
And why do we find you in Coventry?
I am here because Coventry University has a thing where they ask people to come and talk to students and to visiting people and to lecturers and all the rest of it. They've had a lot of notable people on the show, so this is an occasion when they've got somebody who's not particularly notable.
I wouldn't say that. Talking about a broadcasting history that spans a long time. But you also have, is it your dad who's got a contact in Coventry?
Yeah, my father was sales and competition manager for Rudge Whitworth Motorcycles, who are based in Coventry. Sadly, they went bust in 1938, but there is still a very strong, believe it or not, Rudge enthusiasts club, and they all get together with their old-fashioned Rudges and talk to each other. But it was a great company, and my father raced for them and was, in effect, world champion around about 1928, 1930.
So petrol in your blood then?
Petrol in my blood. My father raced from 1920 until 1935. I was born in 1923, so he raced for 12 years. He had been racing for 12 years before he stopped when I was 15 years old. So I was either going to love it or loathe it, and I love it.
Well, I guess that. Do you know what the horrible thing is? I'm so tempted to do an impression of you. Do you get that wherever you go? Do people try? No, I'm not going to do it, actually. I'm going to stop myself. I nearly went into it then. Do you get that? People going, here,
Yeah, I do a bit, yeah. There's nothing wrong with the car except it's on fire.
Is that your impression of yourself?
That's my impression of myself.
That's amazing. You sounded just like you without putting any effort in whatsoever. In fact, I want maybe we could ask a little favour later on this morning. Is Roisin, who does the travel? You know, she's very good and she knows her cars and she knows the roads. She's come along leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe you could give her a few tips. If I gave you a few little travel stories, maybe you could do a travel bulletin and show her how it should be done. Would that be okay later on?
Yeah, I'd be absolutely delighted.
Okay.
Is she young and good looking?
Of course she is.
Oh, right.
Of course she is.
Okay,
Talking about
no problem.
young and good looking as well. Our Tim is here, who's a big part of the show. Now, our Tim is a little bit of a fan, to say the least.
Right.
So I thought, if it's all right, is he allowed to ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Right, apparently you started on BBC in 1978, is that right?
No, I started the BBC in 1949.
Wrong with your facts, Tim. I'll tell you what, I built up to be a big fan.
So it's 0 out of 10 so far, Tim.
You've embarrassed yourself, Tim, in front of the legend.
Shut up, you! Is it true you started in 1948 on the Walsh?
Yeah, the first commentary of any kind I did was at Shelsley of Walsh Hill Climb at Worcestershire in 1948.
And where did you go from there?
And as a result of that, I got an audition with the BBC. There was only one person I was talking to at Shelsley Walsh as far as I was concerned, and that was a chap called Jim Pestridge, who was the BBC sports producer, and I knew he couldn't get away from me because they had the public address system there, and he was bound to hear me, and he did, and he was kind enough to offer me an audition. And as a result of that, I did the British Grand Prix at Silverstone in 1949.
And you did that through till, when did you stop? Was it?
Well, I'm still doing a bit of commentary. I actually stopped doing all the Formula One Grand Prix in 2001, but I've done stuff for the BBC subsequently, and I still do the old thing when I feel like it.
Because your style is almost as famous as your voice, being very constructive.
Well, so they say, yeah. It's Clive Jacobs once said, Murray Walker talks as though his trousers are on fire. So,
and how come you take that constructive side to it? Because most people, for example, like, I don't know, other people who commentate and motoring journalists who are in the spotlight are very almost destructive about anything that goes wrong. How come you take this off?
Tim, I always regarded my remit as twofold when I was commentating. One, obviously, was to tell people what was happening, because Formula One is a very complicated, it really is a very complicated sport to follow. So it was my job to tell people what was happening, who was in the lead, what the gaps were, what the all that sort of thing. But the second part of my remit, and one that I regarded as probably even more important, was hopefully to entertain and to enthuse people. I am gigantically enthusiastic about motorsport of any kind, and Formula One in particular. And I used to stand in front. I used to stand up to do all my commentaries. Most people sit down, but it's very difficult to get fired up when you're sitting down, or it's a lot harder to get fired up when you're sitting down. And the adrenaline used to pour out of me by the bucketful. And before you get to this question, I had a reputation for making mistakes. And I always say I don't make mistakes, I make prophecies which turn out to be wrong, which is by no means the same thing. But it was great fun.